Hey guys, Dan here from blockchaindapps.com. Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to set up your environment for coding on a blockchain. So what we're going to be running through today is a typical setup that I use to write code, any code actually, including blockchain and Solidity code. So what we're going to be running through is how to set up a virtual machine with a software called VirtualBox by Oracle. And the reason I like to set up a virtual machine to do all my coding is that I dedicate the virtual machine to coding, and my current Windows 10 PC, I've got a lot of apps, I've got a lot of different software and things that I use. And some of that's distracting, so setting everything up in a virtual machine really helps me to focus, because once I turn that virtual machine on, I'm cut off from everything else and I just use the virtual machine and I'm coding away. So the OS I use on the virtual machine is Ubuntu version 18.04, which is what we're going to be installing today. I'll run you through that. And there's a whole heap of other Linux variants that you can use, but I just find Ubuntu is well supported and quite easy to get up and running quickly. So if you don't sure what a VirtualBox is or a virtual machine is, most new computers have technology to virtualize what's called hardware virtualization, which basically means you can run an operating system within your current operating system. So Microsoft also has a product called Hyper-V, which comes included with Windows 10 Pro. We're not going to be using that today, just in case anyone out there has got a Windows 10 Home version. They won't have access to Hyper-V, so we'll use Oracle's VirtualBox to do exactly the same thing. The best part about VirtualBox is it's open source, it's free. So let's get started and I'll show you how to set everything up. Oh, I forgot to mention too, this is going to be a two-part video. So the first part will be how to set up your VirtualBox, how to set up your Ubuntu installation and get that up and running, and then part two will be how to install all of the different packages and software you'll need to start programming on the blockchain. So let's get started. So first thing you'll need to do is just open up a browser and type in download Oracle VirtualBox. And the first result should be the downloads page. And we're assuming you're using a Windows PC here, so if you are using a Linux setup already, then this may not be the best solution for you. If you are keen to still set up a virtualized system to do your coding, just drop me a comment in the comments below and I can help you to set this up on Linux as well. If you're on Mac, you can do the same thing with the OS X host here. So we're going to go for Windows hosts and we're going to download the latest version, and we'll just hit save there. And once that's downloaded, we will run it. It shouldn't take too long. It's only 100 megs, so it's not a big piece of software as far as size goes. Alright, great. So we can click on that to run it. It's a pretty standard setup. So we're going to go next on the first screen. We're going to leave this as default, all of these settings, and hit next. We can change a few different settings if you want it, desktop shortcuts, things like that. I just leave it as default. When you install, you will get this message. Basically what happens is your network will go offline momentarily and then it will come straight back on. The reason for that is that VirtualBox has what's called a virtual network interface, which basically means you can pass internet through your Windows 10 machine to your virtual machine. Oh, in case anyone's wondering, I had a few people asking me what the music in the background is playing on all of my videos. It's the Free Code Camp radio. Yes, Free Code Camp radio. So head over there. I think the URL is radio.freecodecamp.org. But yeah, really awesome music, helps me focus, really great. Okay, so would you like to install this device? So we're going to hit yes on this install here. And again, this is a part of the software is passing, so you can pass your USB devices through to your virtual machine. And that's what this is about, so hit install there. Awesome, and that's done. And the last bit is start Oracle VirtualBox after installation. Check that. Hit finish. It should open up for us automatically. Okay, here it is. So it's a fairly basic interface. Basically, you can, I forgot to mention, you can have multiple virtual machines running on your host. They do use up the hardware on your PC, so just you'll see that as we create the virtual machine, but you do have to be aware of that. So what we're going to do is come in here and we're going to do a new virtual machine. Actually, let me make this full screen. So we're going to go new, and we can give it a name, and I'm going to call this Ubuntu. Okay, you can choose a folder, so this is where the virtual machine's host files will live. We just leave it as the default for now. And here we're going to choose type, so it's already picked up that we've typed in a keyword Ubuntu, and it's changed the type to Linux for us. And the version to Ubuntu 64-bit. We are going to be installing the 64-bit version, and you can, if you were installing if you were installing Red Hat Linux or Debian or Arch Linux, you could choose that here. But for us, we're going to choose Ubuntu 64-bit and hit next. And now we can allocate memory. So we're allocating memory from our host machine to the virtual machine. So I have 8 gigabytes in the computer I'm using, so I'm going to allocate 4 gigabytes to the virtual machine. I think for Ubuntu's recommendation is 4 gigabytes as the minimum system requirement now, although it will work with less. If you only have 4 gigabytes in your host computer, you may just want to set this to 2 gigabytes. So you can hit next again, and now we're going to create what's called a virtual hard disk. So because it's a virtual machine, it's going to have a virtual hard disk, okay? And we're going to create it. It says create virtual hard disk now, and it's already checked for us. We're just going to run with that and hit create. And you can choose it. By default will be what's called a VDI file, which is a VirtualBox disk image, and that's fine for default for us. On the next page you'll see a option to select dynamically allocated or a fixed size. So the difference here is that a dynamically allocated virtual hard drive will grow in size over time. So if you allocate, say, 10 gig, the physical file isn't 10 gig when you first set Ubuntu up. It might only be, say, 4. So that file is the maximum it can grow to is 10 gigabytes before it becomes full. The virtual hard drive becomes full. If you select fixed size, then the file is already 10 gigabytes. So to save space on our computer, we're going to choose dynamically allocated, and that's the default and recommended setting. The next option is you can choose a location. So by default, I recommend leaving it because it will automatically allocate the virtual hard drive to the system folder for that virtual machine. And for us, it's recommending 10 gig. I'm actually going to change that to 32 gig. For basic coding needs, 10 gig, honestly 10 gig's probably enough, unless you're going to start manipulating large files or large image files or video content, something like that. For the most part, 10 gig's probably fine. I'm just going to put it up to 32 just to show you that you can change it. And then we hit create. And now you can see that our virtual machine over here has been created. It gives us information through the middle about what we've got. And you'll see some of our settings here. So our base memory, the 4 gig we allocated, display video card memory, that by default is just 16 meg. Our storage, so we've got our 32 gig hard drive. Our audio is passed through from the host system, and the network by default is a generic adapter, virtual adapter. Okay, so now we're going to start the machine, and we need to boot into the Ubuntu disk. Now to get that, we're going to go back to our browser and type in here Ubuntu download, and the first result should be the Ubuntu site, so we'll head over there to download it. And we are going to download, time of recording this video, the 18.04.4 version is the LTS. LTS is long-term support, which means they'll keep releasing updates for this. The current latest version is Ubuntu 19.10. In all honesty, there's going to be no difference in these two for what we need, so we're just going to stick with the LTS because we know that's well supported. So you hit download there, and you'll be offered to download a ISO file, and we're going to save that, and it'll download for us. Now if you want to, Ubuntu is free, Linux is a free operating system, so you don't need to pay, but they do ask if you are interested, you can donate to them with PayPal, which is a great thing to do. There's a lot of work goes into Ubuntu, so if you do feel generous, please give. I've already downloaded this, so I'm going to cancel this for now. I already downloaded it previously. So once you've downloaded that ISO image, you can come into your VirtualBox and highlight Ubuntu over here and hit start. And when the virtual machine boots up for the first time, it's going to ask you if you want to boot from a disk image or a startup disk, which is what it's asking here. So we can choose our ISO image that we just downloaded, which is here, and we can hit open there, and you'll see it gets attached to the device, and we can hit choose and start. So now it's booting the virtual machine from that ISO image. And you'll see if I can make this a bit bigger. You can drag the window from the bottom right corner. I will show you how to make this full screen after too. So it'll take a few minutes, depending on the speed of your PC, it'll take a few minutes to load up. So I forgot to mention too, if you do have any errors or issues when you install or try to run a virtual machine, anything about hardware virtualization not being turned on, you will need to check that your computer in fact has hardware virtualization. Most newer computers do, but it may not be turned on. Now it's a setting you turn on in the BIOS settings. I'm not going to show you that today because it is different on every computer, but if you're having any issues with that, please let me know in the comments and I can assist you with that as well. Okay, so the first time it boots, it asks us if we want to try Ubuntu, which means we're basically running as one time. Yeah, we're running just to test it out, but we're going to install it because we know we want to use it. So we hit install. And it basically will run us through a whole heap of questions to get us all set up. So we're going to use English keyboard. Continue there. You can change any settings you want. If you want another language, you can use that. We're going to go with a normal installation. Actually, I'm going to choose minimal installation for this. For what we need, the minimal installation is probably enough. The full installation or the normal installation includes games and office software and a few media players. We don't really need those. So I'm just going to skip over that for now. Just going to turn that music down. Alright, so download updates while it's installing. That's always good to leave on if you've got the internet connected, and install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi. I always check this on just because it does download a few different things that we may not necessarily need, but it doesn't hurt to have them as well. So we can hit continue there. Alright, installation type, it's going to ask us if we want to erase the hard disk entirely and install Ubuntu, which we do. This is referring to our virtual hard disk, of course. So we will install now. And it's going to it's just a second prompt to say you sure you want to erase your hard disk. Because the installer, the Ubuntu installer, doesn't know that we're on a virtual machine. So that's what's asking, are we sure we want to delete our hard drive? Alright, we can choose our location. We put in our name. Alright, actually I'm going to put in like it's spell. And I'm going to put in, you have to put in a password. by the way, because it's used to install software as well. This is the master password, and I'm going to set login automatically as well, so I don't have to log in every time I start the virtual machine. And now it's going to copy everything over that we need. Takes between maybe 5 and 15 minutes depending on the age of your computer. So I will pause and we'll come back and when it's done. Alright guys, so the install is now complete for the Ubuntu installation. So it's telling us now we need to restart the virtual machine, so we'll just hit restart now. And now, this is important. It says here, remove the installation medium and then press enter. What we're going to do is come up to devices, optical drives, and if it isn't ticked, untick the Ubuntu ISO disk. Mine wasn't ticked, I actually just ticked it back on, so tick it off. I'm going to force unmount that so it's not plugged in, and then I'm going to hit enter, which means that CD drive, which is a ISO image, is disconnected from the machine now. So it's going to restart for us. Sometimes it does take a little while in this first boot up, so just be patient with it while it's loading. Okay, so there it goes, it's loaded all in for us. It gives you, first time we boot, tells us a bit about what's new in Ubuntu. I'm just going to hit next on that. Live patch, we can skip that for now. Would you like to send this information? I select no here. It's sort of a standard message you get when you install anything now. Do you want to send error messages and things to the developers? Okay, we're ready to go. So we hit done there. And that's it. We've now got a fully operational operating system running within our Windows 10 host environment. So we're going to come back with part 2, and in part 2 we're going to run through how to install some extra software to do things like make this full screen, how to install your code editor. We're going to install Visual Code because I love using it, and I think everyone should be using it because it's awesome. And also show you how to install a few packages and things to get your environment up and running for some blockchain dev work as well. So thanks for watching part 1. I will be back with part 2 soon, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're keen on some more blockchain development work. Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of our 2-part tutorial course on how to set up your blockchain development environment with a Linux installation on a virtual machine within your Windows 10 machine. So we left off last time with our VirtualBox running, and we had installed Ubuntu. So in part 2 we're going to set up the software We're going to get this full screen because you can see it's in a small window at the moment. We're going to push this out to full screen for you, show you how to set up VS Code and also a few other tools for developing with Solidity on the Ethereum network, including actually getting your own mini blockchain up and running for testing within this environment. So the first thing we need to do, we'll get this running at full screen. So we're going to come up here to the devices tab, and you'll see the bottom one says insert guest additions CD image. We're going to hit on that. What that's going to do is push a virtual CD image to the Ubuntu installation, and it contains software. It should pop up automatically. If it doesn't, all you need to do is double click the disk. It'll come up on the desktop, and then you'll see run software. This is the contents of the virtualized disk. We only need to worry about running software. So we do trust this software. We press run. You'll put in your login password, and that will install what we need. Now what's happening here is the Ubuntu doesn't know it's running on a virtual system, so by adding this CD and installing this special software, it tells the Ubuntu system to do, you can do a whole heap of things, but mainly go full screen, so you can use different resolutions. You can also have like you can copy and paste things in and out of the virtual box. That's one of those features. Alright, so it says here return to close the window. So I did get a message here to say please install the GCC make Perl packages from your distribution. I am going to skip that for now. We don't need to do that. Hit enter. Okay, now you can see it's not full screen yet, but if we actually just unmaximize that window and then re-maximize it, it should go full screen for us. Yes, there it goes. Alright, so we're on full screen now. Alright, so we can come up here to devices and eject that CD image by right clicking. Alright, great. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to come and install nodejs. Okay, we need nodejs to run the node package manager, which will allow us to install our virtual blockchain. Actually, you know what, before we do that, I want to show you something. If you come down here to these 9 dots, that shows all our applications. Now some of these you won't use. There's a few games and some office apps. Don't worry too much about those for now, but there's one here called Ubuntu software, and this is kind of like an app store, similar to the Windows App Store. Alright, so you can find a whole heap of different I guess they're well trusted and highly used apps within here. So we're going to press this arrow to drop down more categories, and we're going for developer tools. And in developer tools we're going to see a whole heap of different stuff that you may have seen before. So Genie is a good a text editor. Bluefish is for HTML editing, or I've used it for that in the past. Yeah, there's a whole heap of different stuff, but we are going to come all the way down here to find VS Code, which should be here somewhere. Where is it? Eclipse is a Java editor or IDE. is VS Code? Should be in that list. Okay, well let's go back and we'll do a search for VS Code. Visual Studio Code. There it is. Okay, so I just had to do a search in there. We just want the normal, you see the blue icon, that's the regular version of Visual Studio Code. Okay, in my opinion, it's the best code editor. It's got a heap of add-ons. It's got a good Solidity add-on. So if you're going to be programming in the Solidity language, you can install that and it'll give you some text highlighting and things like that. So we'll just go ahead and install that. It'll ask us for our password again. You can install this by downloading the source from the Visual Studio Code website, but it is a lot quicker and easier just to install it from the Ubuntu software package manager. So that will install for us. And then, okay, we've got it. So now if we open our apps again, we should see it in here. There it is. Okay, so we've got Visual Studio Code. Out of that. Should open up for us. It might take a minute on the first load. Perfect. And that's it. We can get coding straight away. So we could. That's it. All right. So we'll close out of that. Next thing we're going to do is install nodejs. So to do that, we're going to come in here and open up a terminal. Terminal is similar to a command prompt. Okay, I'll make this a bit bigger for us. And I'll make that a bit bigger for you so you can see it. Alright, cool. So first thing we're going to do is install Node, and we're going to do that by typing, I'll put all these in the description of the video, but it's sudo apt install nodejs. It'll ask us for our password. That's the computer password. If you see the blinking and you're typing, it's okay. It doesn't actually move this blinker when you're typing your password, so just enter it and hit enter. Okay, so it's saying here the following, it's gone and found that package for me, nodejs, and it's going to reading the state information, following information, additional packages will be installed. Do you want to do that? Yes. Okay, so it'll go and install those for us. Alright, so that's done. Okay. Cool, so now what we can do is now we've got Node installed, we can check that it's installed by typing node-v, and that'll give us the version. So we're on version 8.10.0. Okay, so we know that's installed. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is set up Truffle. Now Truffle is, if I open up Firefox here, so Truffle Sweet.com. So Truffle is a set of tools that allows you to build smart contracts and test smart contracts. So it's all to do with the Ethereum blockchain and writing Solidity code. So the Truffle software itself is a development environment, and then Ganache is a blockchain. That's another tool we're going to install. And then Drizzle, which I haven't used a lot, but that's to do with front end stuff, so we'll get into that later. But for now, we're just going to install Truffle and Ganache. So what we can do is come out of here. We'll install Truffle first. So to do that, we can go install. Sorry, no, we need to do npm first. So it's node package manager npm, and then install Truffle, and then new g. Hit enter there. Did we not have node in npm? It's telling us we don't have npm installed. Alright, so we can do sudo apt install npm. So if you get the same message, we're going to do what it says, install npm. And yes. I thought npm was included with that nodejs installer. Alright, we'll wait for that to install. Alright, great, so that's installed now. So now we can go back and install our Truffle. So we'll go npm install Truffle. And now it should go and find that package, the node package. What have we got here? It's giving us an error. Missing right access. So we may have to do this with sudo. So sudo basically means run the command as an administrator. Perfect, that's looking good. So that'll just finish off. There we go. All done. So we're installed. Alright, Truffle's installed. Now we're going to close that out. We're going to go and get ourselves the Ganache blockchain. So it's a one-click blockchain. We're going to go to up here to Suite, Ganache. And we're going to go to download for Linux, which should come up for you automatically. Hit on that. Okay, we're going to save that file. And it should download. It's only 130 meg, so it shouldn't be too long. And this is going to allow us to actually start up an Ethereum blockchain locally on the machine, and we can use that to run some testing, execute contracts against that, and see without having to use obviously real Ethereum. So once you've all set up with this, you really won't have to, well, you shouldn't have to install anything else. If you're going to start writing Solidity contracts, you can test them, run them all from here locally. Alright, so we've got that file, we open, and alright, so we've got our file. Now if we double click that, we should be able to open it. Could not display. Okay, so what we do here, we need to run this as administrator or as a root. So if you get that error that I just had where it says could not display the Ganesh.app image, app image, right click and go properties, and you come to permissions, and there's one that says execute, and we're going to write tick allow executing file as program. Double click it again, and what should happen, if we minimize back to the desktop, in a few seconds we should see what comes. We have now got our Ganesh up and running. I'm going to leave analytics enabled because it really actually helps the Ganesh team to continue building this software. So I'm happy to share my stats. Alright, and that's it. So we can go quick start here, and we've actually got we should have shortly our own blockchain. Okay, so you can see here this is our own blockchain. So these are accounts, different accounts with balances. We can see blocks that have transmitted through the chain and transactions. Okay, and you can link it to your smart contracts within VS Code. And then you can check the logs and events and a whole heap of other stuff. So this is actually really, really important, because you can build as many smart contracts as you like, but if you can't test them and you don't know if they will operate as you want them to, then you're wasting your time. So that's where Ganesh comes in. So the other thing I was going to show you, before I forget, of course you can also come in here and go to remix.ethereum.com, I think it is. remix.ethereum.org, sorry. And that will take you to the Remix IDE, which is the online development environment for Solidity contracts on the Ethereum network. Okay, so if you haven't used this before, you can just use this from any browser. You can write code. You can see here there's some sample contracts written. We'll get into all the contracts later and how to write them and things. But yeah, that's another option too. You don't necessarily have to set up all the Ganesh and all that environment. You can just start tinkering with contracts in here. Alright, so the other thing I was going to do is in VS Code we can add we can go here and go to edit, and sorry, it is in preferences, extensions. Okay, and we can find extensions. So we're looking for the Solidity extension. Alright, and you'll see here if you press on it, you'll be able to see what it does. So Ethereum Solidity language for visual code, which means it'll highlight syntax for you based on Solidity language. So these are all, these top three do the same thing. But for now we'll just install the top one, which is called Solidity. Install that. Because without this, the Visual Code Studio doesn't know that you're writing a smart contract, because it is a fairly new language, and it hasn't been built in to the base of Visual Code Studio yet. Visual Studio Code, I should say. So once that's installed, we can go File, New File, and it's taking a long time to install. It says installing still. Okay, so that's installed. So now we can come out of there. So now when we start writing in here, we can save this file untitled2 as untitled. We'll call it smartcontract.sol, SOL, and now it's been picked up as a smart contract. So you can see the little Ethereum logo here. So if we start writing pragma, if we start writing a contract in here, then it'll automatically highlight syntax. Alright, so that's it. You've now got a fully operational Ethereum development environment set up within your Windows machine, within a virtual machine with Ubuntu installed and running. So now you can fire that up and work on your blockchain development right there. You don't have to worry about interfering with any other development work, or interfering with your Windows standard operating system. This is completely separate. And when you're done, you can just shut down the computer like normal. It'll come up here and there's a power button, and you power off, and that's it, you're done. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if the video was helpful to you, and please leave a comment below if you've got any feedback or comments. Thanks for watching.